Here we are in our same test scene, and I want to build another shader which can be really interesting. This little thing in the viewport could be, well, it could be many things, but I really quickly modeled a toothpaste. Okay, so I want to create a toothpaste material, and I don't want a simple toothpaste with just a color and some reflections. I want to create some sort of multicolored toothpaste which has some transparent areas and some opaque areas. So let's create a new shader and we'll rename it here and apply it to our material and open that material up and play with just a color value first. I want to create a toothpaste material which has some sort of lines extending, so it has various colorization. For example, a blue line that would be half transparent, and maybe a white line, maybe even some sort of a greenish line or something like that. So let's build our line shader, and you can find line patterns here under surfaces, tiles. Here you can actually find many patterns, so check them out all. And in this case I want to use these lines, and first we ran into a problem here. You can see that my lines are not properly oriented. I want them to extend in this direction. Okay? So first thought would be, let's change, accidentally move that material. So let's change that projection. That would be the first thought, but actually, as you know, if your projection is set to UVW mapping, your texture will stretch and behave realistically if you scale the object and so on and so forth. So every other projection type can give you some problems. The better way to do this, to reorient these lines, is to use orientation here, and that is common to all these shaders, all these patterns, and currently it's set to U. The next option here is set to V, it means the completely opposite, and watch what happens. And this is exactly what I want. This could be a good starting point, maybe even scale it down globally for, let's say, something like 50%. No, I think I will stick to 100. So let's play with some colors that would be appropriate for toothpaste. For example, these really vivid and strong ones, and I will put this nice blue color here. This green one here. Now I will try with white. It's just a matter of playing what really satisfies you. And you can see that there is a grout which you can actually control. How wide is it and how smooth is it? This is generally this bevel width, and bevel is generally a smooth option. So let's set that grout to something like this really aqua green, and let's do a test render and see what we have. And it's already really looking like a toothpaste. And I think I could go with that. I could live with this. And the next thing I want to do is, let me disable this, is play with this transparency. So let's enable it. And currently it's set to 100%. And I would really like to control this with the texture, with this exactly the same texture. So I will copy it and drop it here under texture. So black and white values within this will control what is transparent and what is not. So let's do a test render and see what do we have to change. So in this case, I want this blue color to be transparent. So don't be confused by this. If I want something to be transparent, I want to set it to completely white. And you can see that our completely white part of the toothpaste is actually transparent. I want only this blue to be transparent, so I will set this blue to white. Okay, like this. And you will see the effect. Now both of these white surfaces are completely transparent. And if I want this grout, these lines to be completely opaque, I will set them to black. You can see the effect, and if we go here, we will just check which color we want to have completely opaque. So this color 2 has to be opaque. I want this white to be non-transparent. So I will set here the color to black. Hope I haven't lost anyone. So if we go back, you can see that actually I can't see any of that blue. I want to have that blue, but I want it to have some sort of a colorization and really somewhat dotted appearance. And the only way I can add color now is to control this absorption color. So when the light hits the transparent object, I will say what color will it become after certain depth. So let's try something like 10 and see what do we have. We have nothing. And nothing will happen unless you change this color. So let's put it exactly the same blue inside and see what do we get. You can see a difference here, and the difference is because the sizes of this object is different in size. So always check on your real object, because these values are calculated really precisely. Okay, so it really depends how big your object is. So let's try even 5 and see if we get the results. Even 2. So it will completely, this could work. So it will completely absorb this color after 2 centimeters after the light penetrated. And here, since I want this blue part to be transparent, but also I want to have it some grainy stuff inside. So I will increase this blurriness to 100% to get this. This is exactly what I want. And I will decrease these samples because I don't need such a result. I even want even more grainy results. So let's try also 5, and I will cut down on the render time too. You can already see that. And when your blurriness is set to 100, you can turn off these two guys, because they will just eat render time up and they will do absolutely nothing. That's it for this part of transparency. And you know, the toothpaste is really vivid and strong and luminescent in color, so I'll activate this luminance channel and play with it a bit just to get the results I need. You can also copy that exactly the same texture here. I'll paste it and really play with this strength until I get a decent result. I will tune down this brightness all the way to 0, because I don't want it to interfere when I lower this value, okay? Because washing out will happen. So let's try something like 50%. That's too much, maybe 25 will play. Yeah, I could live with this. Yeah, it really has that vivid, colored, luminescent feeling to it. This is exactly what I want. And since I have all the properties I need, except that really shiny reflective feel to it, which I cannot do now within the reflection channel, because it will eat something up of this existing color, luminance or transparency, I will again use clear coat. Close this, disable this preview render and create a new material. Let's name it clear coat. I'm building it by hand always, but you know, you can actually save your materials for a preset so you can reuse it. So if you remember, we will use simple color here in displacement, just 0.1 centimeters, and in height we'll disable color channel. Transparency will be somewhere around 95 as a starting point, and we'll pump this reflection up all the way to 100%. And this is the basic clear coat. This can work in almost 99% of the cases. So we have to copy our original object, delete this texture again. We could probably rename this to Toothpaste CC, which will stand for clear coat. Let's apply it and do a test render and see what do we have. And you will see we have a little problem now, but we will fix it. Just want to show you where the problem is. Hey, you can see we have some really unwanted results, and that is because this hypernerves only affects this first guy, Okay? And that's problematic. We want this clear coat to be in exactly the same shape, but slightly larger than our original object, so it will give nice reflection. You can see that this toothpaste is protruding here and here. To fix such situations, you can just select both objects and hit Alt G. It will group them, and now this hypernerves, which is a generator, will influence them both. So let's do our test render and see where we are at. And you can see we have a slight specular forming here. So let's play a bit with that clear coat material. And let's try and set 90% here. See, we get better results, at least as if you ask me. You can find the different settings really work for you. What I pleases me does not have to work for you also. Okay? It's all the matter of taste. Let's also enable our shadow here and see what do we get. Yeah, that's really decent. And as you can see here, where you are doing a preview render, no matter how good settings you put here, we'll talk about these render settings. Here enter anti-aliasing. No matter how large levels are here, no matter how high quality you set, you won't be able to get rid of these jagged edges, because that is the way that it works in viewport. If you do a render to picture viewer with Shift R, you will get clean results. And you can use this viewport just for testing and orientation. If you really want to see the final result, the final quality, where these settings really matter, you will have to use this picture viewer. Okay? And it is really powerful. We will talk about it a bit later. So the only thing after creating materials, creating various shaders, and creating light setups and shadows and render settings is how to optimize them, how to cut down on the render time. And we will talk about that also, but for now, you can add a compositing tag to this toothpaste. So tags enough for the compositing, and turn off everything that can't be visible or doesn't have an influence to an object. But you have to be sure that some feature won't be visible, and I'm completely sure that this clear coat won't cast shadows, and that effect is barely and really barely visible. So I will disable this, and if you disable shadows on something, you will really get much more speed in the render time. I will also disable this ambient occlusion, because ambient occlusion is really designed for surfaces where you have irregularities. We don't have any irregularities here, so I will completely uncheck it. Okay? And this ambient occlusion is not turned on by default. It can be enabled in the shader or in the render settings for the whole scene. Some of these settings should stay because we want it to be transparent and seen by refraction, which is actually the bending of the light, and by reflection, which is the reflection of the light. And let's try a test render now and see what we get. Nice results for a toothpaste. You can even play with this luminance value here in the luminance channel. Let's try 50%. You will get a really vivid toothpaste, something like this. If you don't want grains here, you would naturally play with this blurriness value here. And there you go, there is your toothpaste. So let's build another shader.